The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, welcome to Catholic Chicago. I'm Father Greg Sakowicz, the rector of Holy Name Cathedral in Chicago. And to my left, my dear friend here, Mark Teresi, former executive director of the cathedral. We're presently the co-chair of the 175th anniversary, which will happen next month at the cathedral, and 150 years of a cathedral a year from November is part of Mark's responsibility. So good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good morning. Good. I have my...
Hold that up there.
I have my 175th mug. November 18th is our actual anniversary, 175 years. We're going to have a noon mass, celebrate
All
that.
are invited.
Right. And then 24th, that Sunday, 12:30, we're going to have mass with the Cardinal. Cardinal could not be, he's not going to be in town the 18th. 24th, it'll be a nice, beautiful mass.
And again on Monday, November 18th, 12 o'clock. On Sunday, November 24th, 12:30 p.m. with Cardinal Supich. All are welcome, because when you think about it, 175 years as a parish, and a year from November, 150 years as a cathedral. That's a lot of rich history.
And one thing I'd like to underscore, the first two groups that were founded in the parish were the St. Vincent de Paul Society and the Sacred Heart League, which I think tells you a lot about that faith community.
Right. Going way back to 1849. That's even pre-Civil War by about 11 years.
It's pre your birth.
Pre my birthday, too. Thanks for sharing that. And this guy's 2 years behind me, so what is he laughing about? And we have a great program lined up here today. With us is Dr. Edward Gordon, a historical economist, teacher, writer, scholar, great friend, wonderful wife Elaine, both very active parishioners at Holy Name Cathedral. So, good morning, Edward. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Greg?
Good to have you here with us again back. In fact, out of all the programs, Mark, we have ever done, I think our number one guest by way of popularity is our very own Dr. Edward Gordon.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Because you dig deep into issues that our listeners and watchers are very interested.
You do your homework. And so we want to spend today on the half hour on the economy.
Yes.
We're going to try to cover three topics. Topic number one, long-term debt.
Yes.
What is that all about, Edward?
Well, during COVID, as your viewers know, the government borrowed a lot of money. And there was always a long-term debt anyway in the federal. But now what we see is that soon we will be at $34 trillion in government debt for the United States.
$34 trillion.
$34 trillion, that's right. Now,
what a number.
Think of it this way. World debt right now is $100 trillion.
Oh, wow.
For all the governments. And we are at a third of that.
Wow.
All right. Now, this year alone, the government went $1.8 trillion over budget. All right.
Wow.
So think about that. Now, the interest rates now have gone down. All right. Now, how long is that going to persist? That's a good question. Right now, people are happy it's gone down. The stock market is an all-time record high right now.
Right now?
Right now, yes. Yesterday hit another record. What will happen after the election next year? Because right now, a lot of promises are being made to even increase the debt further. So the amount of debt could go up higher. Now, if we have another economic downturn, the last time the Federal Reserve Bank bought a lot of that debt, and now they're trying to pay it off. They had like $8 trillion worth of debt that they bought.
Is an economic downturn inevitable?
Well, usually what goes up comes down.
Yeah.
It just can't keep going up.
Now, of course, there have been various people have suggested that we devalue the dollar. Various people have suggested that that doesn't matter. Okay, but in reality, this time it's not different, and ultimately we will have a downturn. Now,
Now, Edward, let me ask you this quick before I
Yes.
forget, and that is, when you talk long-term debt, okay, now, as a pastor or as a rector,
Yes.
one of the biggest things that cost a parish is salaries. And that, I mean, it doesn't cause debt necessarily, but I'm saying now in terms of long-term debt, is what's one of the main or two causes of debt in our country?
The three of us.
Say
Oh,
more.
Senior citizens, you mean?
Yes. You know, the boomers cause a lot of trouble coming in, and they're going to cause a lot of trouble going out.
The volume of us.
That's right. That's right.
So this level of seniors is costing the government billions and billions of
Trillions.
dollars.
Trillions.
But we also paid in.
Yes, that's true. But what we paid in was insufficient
Oh,
for, and now there are fewer people paying into Social Security.
Yeah, and
All
we're
right.
living longer.
And we're living
Right.
longer.
Right. So if you look at the next slide, if they put that up right now, you'll see what I'm talking about. So by 2035, Social Security will run out of money. And by 2036, so will Medicare.
We'll run out of money.
Right. Now, why is that? Well, you have 73 million people by 2030 will have retired.
Wow.
Now, that's from 2010 to 2030. All right, that's what we're talking about, that time frame. All right?
Okay.
Now, but the numbers, when we entered the workforce, it was growing at 1.1% every year, the people entering. Now we're down to like 0.3% growth of the workforce. There are just fewer people entering the
And so
workforce.
less money entering into Social Security.
Correct. Now, and with Medicare, let's see now, have any of us sitting here have had any what we'll call extraordinary medical expenses in the last few years?
Not yet. No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay. Usually that does happen, right? And a lot of people are now going to the doctor that are older, and that is pushing up Medicare expenditures. All right.
You know, even recently when I had a MRI on my leg because I've got a torn gluteus medius and gluteus minimus, the cost of an MRI, if it had come from my pocket, I'd go broke.
Right.
Correct.
And these medical bills are staggering.
Right. Right. Now, of course, you know, you're covered with Social Security. You probably have a supplemental health care policy. So do I. I've been having some procedures, and the amount of money is staggering when you look at these bills. All right.
If this,
So,
was out of your pocket, you'd be broke.
So that's a large part. Now, if nothing is done about that by those dates that we just saw, they'll just cut benefits. So, you know, you could lose maybe a third of your Social Security payment,
Whoa.
and Medicare will cover less.
Or you die early.
Yeah. In fact, let's maybe
Well,
go.
people are living longer.
I
Well,
know.
let's do this,
exactly.
Edward. Because we got so much to cover today.
Yeah.
Let's flip from long-term debt and segue into Social Security and Medicare. So keep on that topic right
All
now.
right, all right. Well, there is a solution. The solution is there are several. First, you raise retirement age to 70. I took my benefit at 70. Now, I didn't do Medicare at 70, but Social Security I did, all right? That will help. Secondly, you increase the tax on payroll that the employer contributes and that the employee contributes. If we did that adjustment with a slight increase, we would have enough money in the fund to like 2090.
You think they'll do that?
No.
Why?
Not until the last second.
Right.
Because no one wants, neither the Democrats or Republicans want to be blamed for raising Social Security
It's a
taxes.
hot political issue.
So they will wait to the very last minute And then they'll jointly say, well, folks, we had no alternative because we don't want poor people to suffer, so we had to raise these taxes. Now, of course, if we can increase the number of people employed, that would help. And right now we have record numbers of vacant jobs.
Wow.
We still do. A good example of this, well, you see it all the time. Boeing is in deep trouble right now. So is Airbus. The deep trouble is they have a huge backlog of aircraft. They have wonderful training programs that they use through their local technical community colleges in the Seattle area and in North Charleston. The difficulty is finding 18, 19, 20-year-olds who have a high enough level of reading comprehension that can go into the training program and successfully complete it. Remember now, I've said this before, I'll just repeat it again. Only a third of high school graduates coming out of high school read at the 12th grade level of reading comprehension.
In our country.
Right, correct.
1/3.
1/3. Now,
Well, stop right there. That's 2 out of 3 graduating high school, roughly age 18, cannot read at a 12th grade level.
correct. They maybe are at the 10th, 11th, 9th.
And many of them are going on to college
Yes, and flunking out.
and flunking out.
And they are taking out loans. And now the colleges are pressing professors to pass them through with D's. Now, for a while their colleges had remediation programs. This was to serve the intelligent youth, minority youths mainly, who needed additional reading and math and writing skills. And they'd put them in a remediation program, and then once they got high enough, they'd put them into a regular course. Well, those have been eliminated. Why? Because the colleges want that loan money. They're tuition driven. And I'm talking about all kinds of colleges, all right? And the numbers of kids that were in those programs had gone from just minority, underserved, underprivileged youth that come out of weak to larger and larger and larger numbers of students across the country.
Okay.
All right? So right now...
Now, Ed, can you touch on the stats or whatever knowledge you have about people's savings and how that's also an impact in terms of Social Security, Medicare, because people aren't saving
Correct.
for that.
Well, inflation, during COVID, a lot of money was poured into the economy, and the economy grew because people took that money and spent it.
Okay.
All right? And inflation took a lot of that money.
Yeah.
The minimum wage was raised, and that helped a lot of people, but expenses went up.
Yeah.
Now, right now, inflation has been tamed in many areas, not all. Okay, and you now see strikes occurring where people are asking for a phenomenal increase in their wages. All right, you have 8 million to 12 million vacant jobs. Companies, so you have aerospace technicians, lab technicians, auto technicians, small engine technicians, doctors, nurses, math teachers, good salespeople. We're in short supply of all those things worldwide. So what are companies doing? There's a small number of what we'll call knowledge workers who have the basic education, which now is 12th grade reading, that can be trained into a job.
Okay.
Now, only about 20% of companies are training. So they're bidding on that third that have the basic education and have already been trained into a job. They don't want to train. So what are they doing? How are they getting those people? Well, they're bidding up wages.
Now
So wages are at 4% inflation on wages.
Now, speaking of inflation, this story just rings a bell. Back in 1969, I'm 16 years old, get my first job in Park Ridge at 7-Eleven.
Right?
Working the store,
Yes.
stocking shelves, behind the counter. Cigarettes were 42 cents a pack
Right.
at 7-Eleven, which is considered higher than Walgreens and other places. Labor Day weekend of 1969, cigarettes jumped up to 50 cents a pack, like $3.89 a carton. Longer cigarettes, $4.29 a carton. Compare that to today, where I hear one pack is like $6, $7, $8
Right.
per pack for
Right.
cigarettes, versus I was charging, well, and the store was 42 cents.
Right.
55 years ago. It's a long time ago, but
Right, right.
look at it over the
Still.
time.
Well, right.
Mark, take us to break.
Yes, Catholic Chicago. We'll be back in a few minutes. Dr. Edward Gordon, our historical economist, will be talking when we come back about the tariff and immigration. Those two topics which Doctor will guide us through. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
People always say, how can you spend your day with 3-year-olds? Seeing the changes that they go through and just the journey and how they grow, this is a very rewarding job. Even though at the end of the day, we're not the highest paid people on earth. And when I have a parent contact me and say, my child loves school, that to me, I'm setting that foundation for their love of learning. Because really, you are changing lives, you are molding lives.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at artchicago.org/schooljobs.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at artchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
We're back. Catholic Chicago, Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Teresi, here with Dr. Edward Gordon, our great friend and historical economist. We're continuing our conversation on the economy. You want to start talking about tariff
Tariffs,
strategy?
right.
And immigration.
And immigration. Two hot button topics across our country.
Maybe for our listeners, first of all, Edward, what do we mean by tariff?
Yeah, good.
Very simple definition.
Good question.
Well, let's go back to the 1930s. In the 1930s, the Great Depression occurred, and the solution that was used, partially at least, was to protect American jobs. And to protect American jobs, what we did is we put tariffs on imported goods. All right? Now, what did that do? Well, theoretically then, foreign countries who had bought our goods would pay that tax, and that would help to increase the federal budget. What resulted was other countries then put tariffs on their goods.
Oh.
So global trade collapsed, basically, all right? And who then paid, what happened? Well, then within the United States, certain goods and articles increased in price because we have been importing those goods. All right, so now we hear a lot of talk about protecting American industry. Right now, we have 1 million manufacturing jobs vacant. Now, these jobs are tied to the issue I just brought up before the break. These are high-end jobs, meaning You have to read computer screens, manuals. You have to be able to comprehend, read, write, and do math. All right? And we don't have enough people going into those jobs because we lack. The education system we have is rooted in the 20th century. We're now in the 21st century. The world has changed. The jobs of 1970, the lower skilled jobs that could pay a middle class wage are gone. They have been automated. All right? So, the net result is people talk about, we'll protect American manufacturing, people will go back to work in manufacturing, we'll ramp it up. All right, the federal government now has just passed a big chip bill to build chip factories. They're building those factories. They have a problem. Number one, they can't find enough skilled labor to build the factories, so they're behind schedule. Number two, there are not enough people that can make chips. So they're going to spend a lot of money trying to train people. Okay, that's good. The problem is, are the people trainable? If you graduate from high school and read at the 8th grade level or 6th grade level, and that's true for a lot of people, how can you make a chip?
Right.
Yeah.
You can't read and comprehend the material. So, are we going to see manufacturing bloom? To the extent we improve education, you can't make bread without wheat. We don't have wheat. We need massive reform of our K-12 systems, public and private. Private schools are a little better. Parochial schools are a little better.
People, okay, we don't have enough wheat. Let's say you start looking, you import wheat from a country.
Yes.
It gets to our shore. What does a tariff mean? You are taxing?
You're taxing the import of that wheat. The other country is taxing you. All right? Because that's what will happen. If we put a tariff on everything we're exporting, all right, what will happen is you will see Europe, Asia will put tariffs on our goods. So we put a tariff.
It becomes a trade-off.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and that's what helped to deepen the world depression.
Right.
And we just talked about debt, didn't we? The Germans borrowed a lot of money after World War II from the United States. The Depression hit. We demanded repayment of those loans. Who became Chancellor of Germany? Hitler. That helped to drive the middle class of Germany into poverty.
Yeah.
What we see now is a repeat of the 1930s mentality worldwide, if it happens. A lot of people are looking for simplistic solutions to economic issues, all right? So what I'm saying to you is, to solve the Social Security problem, you need more people
Into
working.
the program, yeah.
And to solve our manufacturing employment, and there are people who have those skills and would like to work in manufacturing, you need to give them a better basic education. What a basic education meant in 1900 is different from 1970, right?
Or 2024.
Or 2024.
Now,
we don't want to deal with it because it's a systemic collapse, and no one wants to deal with this. I've talked about this now since the 1990s. I'm tired of talking about it. Our politicians don't want to touch it. Parents don't want to touch it. The school system doesn't want to touch it. Fine. If we don't touch it, economically, this is going to accelerate these problems that we're talking about in terms of long-term debt, Social Security, Medicare, jobs. Raising tariffs is not going to protect this.
Now, what you just said, connect all that, our last few minutes, immigration. How is that affecting this whole umbrella?
All right. How did America fill all these jobs until recently? We did two things. We exported manufacturing to other countries like Germany, Japan, Taiwan.
Buying our products.
No, making them.
I'm making them.
And importing them.
Right.
Okay? And secondly, we imported skilled workers from India, Germany, Russia, the worldwide, all right? Now you have an issue. Worldwide, 2030, we're going to be short 90 million skilled workers worldwide. Some predictions here will be short 30 million. Wow. Why? Because technology will continue to advance and demand more education as a baseline to be trained to do what? Everything. All right? We are not paying attention to this. Why? It's not politically popular. And it's not popular with parents. You know, their kid deserves, everyone should get an A in school. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. They need homework. They need more rigorous education. Chat GDP, online learning is not going to do it.
Now, as we look at the upcoming election, we've not heard this issue from either side.
Well, of course not. No one wants to talk about raising Social Security taxes. No one wants to talk about the fact that our educational systems are tied to a bygone age, a bygone economy, and we need to update it. It means sacrifice. It means parents are going to have to do more to support their kids' education. It means in the short term you're going to have to take that money from vacations and put it in your kids' education. It means we need better educated teachers. It means we need to bring back more training in business, which means short-term profits are going to take a hit because now companies have to give the maximum return because three codgers like us demand more money for our retirement. Well, I have news for you. There's plenty of blame to be spread, whether it's the old people who want money, businesses are greedy, parents coddle their children too much and don't demand educational excellence, and the teachers believe they can't do it because the parents aren't supporting it. The college and universities need to pump up and improve their training, but the K-12 is sorely deficient across our nation.
And now everything you just said, this should have been started years ago, so we're lagging way behind.
I wrote a book, Closing the Literacy Gap in American Business, in 1991.
That's 33 years ago.
I wrote another book called The 2010 Meltdown, talking about the boomers retiring and what was coming. This is what was coming. It was ignored. I wrote Job Shock. I wrote now Future Jobs, Solving the Employment and Skills Crisis, all right? And some things have happened. Not everyone's ignoring this. I'm not saying all parents ignore this. Right. A third, hey, my dad was a carpenter, my mother a secretary. I got a very good education. It was very important. They pushed me into it. My point is that most kids can be educated to come out of high school reading at the 12th grade level. They're not going to write books, they're not going to be college professors, but half of the jobs we need to fill require a certificate, apprenticeship, maybe a 2-year degree, not a 4-year degree, all right? And that's the message. That is the message. Business alone can't do this. Educators alone can't do this. Parents alone can't do this. This requires community action. And the pap that is being fed to the American people right now, that by raising debt further, by cutting off imported workers, and we don't have enough people to import. Everyone needs the same people. That's ridiculous. Yeah. And putting tariffs on everything, okay, some companies are dumping goods on the United States with very low-cost stuff. I can understand putting a tariff on some goods, all right? Not all, but some. But this blanket idea that alone is going to solve all our debt problems and economic problems is a lie. It is just a barefaced lie.
And we need to bring the program to a close because we could talk for another hour. I want to thank in a very special way Dr. Edward Gordon, who is an historical economist, author, writer, theologian in terms of his work ethic.
And no passion for this topic.
And no passion for this topic. And Edward, you have been, again, a tremendous guest here on Catholic Chicago. So thank you. You'll certainly be back again. Thank you to co-host Mark Teresi. Great job. And to our producer and to our engineer, to Brian Hitman Hockey Brock and Clint Cottrell for listening. May God bless all of you and have a wonderful day and week.